Hey guys, Mr. Adams back here today. Here I'm in another corner in my basement here tonight, this afternoon, and I look around and there's so much stuff to talk about. Every time I come down to my basement, I seem to learn something new. So anyway, this video is going to be about reviewing some of the floor terms, again, some of the foundation terms we've learned in class. We've gone over this stuff repeatedly. A lot of the stuff we talked about, though, we haven't had good visuals of because the paperwork sometimes doesn't match up with the house that we're seeing down that Mr. Burley's building. So anyway, one thing that's special about my basement down here is I have what's referred to as a daylight basement. All right, if you look here, if you guys recall in some of the other videos, my front porch is right here on the other side of this foundation wall. This is a poured concrete wall. All right, it's a solid poured concrete wall, and that's formed in place and poured in place, and we've seen some videos on that in class, and that's resting on a footer. All right, the footer has a keyway in it. All right, and it also has rebar coming up from the footer, so that when they attach that foundation wall to the footing, it's all fastened appropriately down there. On top of which our concrete slab, the 4-inch thick concrete slab here, rests on top of our footer. All right, so that's important. Underneath our 4-inch concrete slab, we have a 6 mil poly vapor barrier, which we've seen on many prints we've talked about. And underneath that 6 mil poly vapor barrier is designed to mitigate the radon gas permeating up from the ground. And it's also helping if there's any type of moisture permeating up from the ground, it's dispersing it into our drainage system that we have, all right, beside our footing. In this particular house, we have a product called Forma-Drain beside our footers. So our footing is right here, all right. Our concrete wall is placed on top of our footing. Now our footing is, again, underneath our concrete slab here, and we have a drainage system on the side of the footing called Forma-Drain. Sometimes people will use a 4-inch perforated pipe, and all that pipe is being drained then to the sump pump bucket, which we're going to do in another video on that. So anyway, that's just in this corner some of the stuff we've talked about in class. Again, one of the things that's special is the contour of my ground goes down like this on the outside. All right, so I can see outside here. This is called a daylight basement. Now this is nice to have if you can find a lot when you're building a home that has a slanted lot like this. You can increase the square footage of your property by adding a daylight basement. All right, these are egress windows. All right, so they meet a lot of the fire code that you have to get through if you don't have a daylight basement like that. So you have to build a special chute to get out of the basement before you're allowed to remodel down here. So homes with a daylight basement are typically appraised at a higher value, all right, than homes that don't have a daylight basement because they have more daylight in them for one, right? They're easier to access, and you have an egress window right there. Not on top of which you have some of it already framed and ready for drywall. All right, you can see here in my basement we have back over here, so I don't forget, we have our sill plate. Again, our common floor joist we talked about in other videos, our 2x10 spruce floor joist. All right, but then if you look at my foundation, the way it's formed, it comes down here to the ground level, right outside the window. You can see the ground level, and then we've basically just framed up a spruce wall, just like we've done in class many times. The only difference is we have a pressure treated plate again because it's on top of concrete. If you can see there's Blue Sill Seal, SILSEAL. Now that's a name of a product brand, but that's there to keep the termites and bugs from crawling into my foundation. So this is the top of the foundation, the sill plate. Now I happen to have mine framed out for a window here, which we're lucky to have because we can go over some of the parts that are involved with that. All right, right beside here you see my header. All right, we talked about this in class. This is a header. This particular header is a 2x10 spruce header. All right, a 2x10 is the nominal dimension. We've gone over that in class. The actual dimension is 1.5 inches thickness by 9.25 inches width. All right, so this is a 2x10 header, and how that's built is it's got a 2x10 here. It's got some plywood in the middle, and it's got a 2x10 here. Just like we built in class, we built headers before. The headers we built in class were made out of 2x4s. This particular header is made out of a 2x10. All right, we have 2x6 jack studs, all right, beside our king stud. All right, so this is our king stud. this is our jack stud like we learned in class, all right? So some people will call this a trimmer stud. Anyway, in class we called it a king and a jack. This particular jack stud, it's a jack stud because it's underneath the header here, holding up the bearing weight, the compression load of our header, all right? So our jack stud, this is a double jack stud because it's a long span here. In class, we built many openings with just a single jack stud, all right? And then a king stud beside it, okay? This isn't a full height wall, but if it was, this would be a common stud right beside our main electric panel, all right? Which is something we talked about in class. We talked about several different times. And you guys have seen the power go off in class before. So we have a 200 amp service coming in here, feeding multiple circuits, all right? This is our bus bar. All right, 2 bus bars in there, and each circuit feeding into the home. All right, so this is our main power supply coming into the house. All right. Some of the other things you see here, this is a supply line. All right, a plumbing supply line feeding the outside hose bib out there. So where I hook my hose on to water my garden, this is the exterior supply line, and that's a shutoff valve so that it doesn't freeze outside in the wintertime. You shut that off so it's off in the wintertime. So all right guys, so there's lots to learn just in this corner too of my basement. A lot of the terms that we've gone over are right here. So take a look around your basement, see what you've got, and see if you can identify any of this stuff that we talked about here today. Again, thanks for joining our Zoom meeting at 8 a.m. Don't forget, they're every day, Monday through Friday, or every day we're scheduled to have school at the CTC at 8 o'clock in the morning, guys. And thanks a lot for your cool pictures. I really, really enjoy seeing all the stuff you guys are doing. It's fun. So anyway, have a great day. Stay positive, guys. I hope everyone's safe and having a great weekend or whatever you're doing. So take care.